The title of this section is Dimensioning an Annotation. So we need to start thinking now about adding dimensions to our drawing and annotation to our drawing that explains what we're doing and communicating our design intent. The first thing we need to check is whether we've got a dimensions layer. So let's go up to our 2D drafting and annotation workspace. Make sure you're in 2D drafting and annotation there. Home tab on the ribbon, Layers panel, and Layer Properties Manager. Now I've gone into the Layer Properties Manager because if I haven't got a dimensions layer, I'm going to need to add one, and you'll notice there isn't one. What I'm going to do there is click on New Layer, and I tend to call my dimensions layer just DIMS, DIMS, and I'm going to give it the color red. So I click on the blue that it's taken on board from the layer above, and I'm going to give that a red color, this red color just here, and I OK that. What I'm then going to do is double click next to dimensions there to make it the current drafting layer and close the Layer Properties Manager. Now, let's have a look now at the dimension panel. Now the dimension panel is on the Annotate tab here on the ribbon. So click on Annotate. And as you can see there, we have our dimensions panel right here. Now we need to make sure we've got a decent dimension style. So like with text styles here, you've got that little arrow. You've also got an arrow there for dimension styles. Click there. And we've got an ISO 25 style there. That's the default metric style. Now we're just going to go through it really quick and modify it so that we've got some settings there that I would personally use. So in the Lines tab, I would set all these to by layer so they adopt the colors and the settings of your dimensions layer. Baseline spacing, I would go for 10. And also here on the extension lines, which are these little vertical lines that come out on each dimension, again, make them all by layer so that they adopt the colors and the settings of the layer, the dimensions layer. Extend beyond dimension lines. If you're working in a millimeters drawing, I would perhaps go for 2.5 millimeters there. And the offset from the origin there, I'd go for perhaps 4 millimeters, like so. We then go to the Symbols and Arrows tab here at the top. I would stick with what we've got there already. That's absolutely fine. Closed, filled arrowheads. Arrow size, maybe up that to 3.5 so they stand out a bit more. Center marks for any circles and radii and diameters, I tend to set that to none. I don't tend to use that because it can clutter the drawing sometimes. Everything else on the Symbols and Arrows tab I would leave as is. The text, using the text style, the standard text style, but text color, again, make it adopt the dimensions layer, so it's all one color. You can add a fill color, for example, and you'll see there's a yellow fill behind my dimension text. I personally don't tend to use that. I leave it at none. Text height there, let's say 3.5 millimeters, just for argument's sake. Text placement, vertical, so that's above there, like so, so it's above the dimension line. Horizontally, it's centered on the dimension line. Now the view direction, this was a new feature in AutoCAD 2010. You can flip from left to right. As you can see there, it's flipped them underneath the other way round, or left to right again, the default setting. So it's left to right or right to left. Great when you're doing elevations on drawings. The offset from the dimension line, let's say 2.5 millimeters again there. And as you can see, the preview updates as you go. Text alignment, we want it all aligned with the dimension line for the moment. The fit there, you don't need to think about anything here at all. Leave it all as it is. When we look at annotative scaling just here, then you'll understand what all of this does. Primary units, we're decimal and we're using the unit settings that we've already got preset in the drawing. The only thing I would change there, decimal separator, I would maybe change that to a period, which in essence is a full stop or a decimal place. Everything else there, just leave as is for the moment. You can display alternate units. If I select that there, I could display architectural units as an alternate unit, and that would then show feet and inches as well. Also, that works the other way. If you're working in feet and inches, you could display decimal alternate units as well. We don't need alternate units in this case, so I'll untick that there. Tolerances, you might need tolerances, things like limits, plus or minus. So if I went there, you've got plus or minus, upper value, lower value, and so on. We don't actually need any tolerances either. So if I OK that now, we've got a half decent dimension style to use. Select ISO 25 and set current and close. All we need to do now is look at placing some dimensions on the drawing. So let's have a look at that. What I'm going to do is click on the dimension flyout here. Here's all the types of dimensions I can use. Let's just go for linear in an X and Y direction. Specify the first extension line origin. Now that's going to be the endpoint snap there. Always, always, always use your object snaps when you're dimensioning. You need accuracy here. So I'm hopping there, 2 endpoint snaps, and as I drag the dimension upwards, there's going to be a third click to place the dimension line. Now, that dimension looks a bit strange. Where are the arrowheads and where's the dimension? Position your crosshair here and just roll up on that wheel. As you can see, when you roll up on the wheel, the arrowhead is there, but it's real size. It's actually 3.5 millimeters in size, so it's very tiny. Same with the text. If I pan across here and try and find that text, it's just there. Can you see? And if I zoom in, there is actually a 6,000 millimeter dimension there. Now, the reason being is you've placed that dimension with an annotation scale at the moment down here on the status bar of 1:1. If you move on to the next exercise in this section, you'll see how to set your annotation scales for your dimensions so that they appear the right size on your drawing, both in the model tabs and in your layout tabs.